You know, now that I've really looked into World War II and like listened to many different audiobooks by Anthony Beaver and William N. Grant's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, I've listened to so many different audiobooks on World War II now, and it's disgusting to me. And what's disgusting to me? What's disgusting to me is how little people give credit to the Russians, the Soviets, however you want to call it. They are the ones that really won World War II against the Nazi juggernaut in Germany. Why? Many different things. Rokossovsky was probably one of the best generals in the history of World War II. The best. Zhukov, not so good. But Rokossovsky is probably one of the best. Dude, he was the brainchild of Operation Bagration. He was the brainchild. He orchestrated that. I mean, Zhukov kind of orchestrated it was really Stavka that kind of like helped bring Operation Uranus to fruition and the encirclement of the Sixth Army in Stalingrad. But the Russians, they did so much more than the Americans. The Americans' contribution cannot really be understated, though, because the Americans gave Lend-Lease to the Russians, and then the Russians were able to take Berlin. Without the logistical support from the Americans with the trucks and the fleet of trucks, like so many trucks, like they weren't mechanized as much as the Americans were, the Russians I'm talking about. But they definitely were more mechanized than the Germans. Undisputed. Lend-Lease helped contribute, but it was really American dollars, Russian blood, and British ingenuity that won World War II. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. The British were the ones that deciphered the Enigma. They were the ones that helped the Manhattan Project come to fruition. They obviously helped the Americans, and the Americans helped them, and it was a mutual assistance. But really, we couldn't have done it without the Americans, and we couldn't have done it without the Russians. It's mutual. It's really mutual. I think the Russians would still have won, but it would have been a much bloodier and a much harder road to Berlin from Moscow. Now let's break it down and let's really look at all of the operations that culminated to the defeat of Nazi Germany. Operation Bagration was the operation in 1944, which destroyed the Army Group Center and opened the path to Western Poland, right? And then they were able to cause the encirclement of Army Group Courland in the Baltic states. They took over Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania back, but yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that you can blame the Soviets for and all of this stuff, but I think we should give them more credit though, because if it wasn't the Soviets, then the Germans would have won. Without the Soviets, the Germans would have won. I think the Soviets had definitely a bigger contribution. If you look at the overall picture, the Russians had more of a contribution to winning World War II. For them to weather the storm and just counterattack at the point of effort from like when the Germans attacked with case blue and they wanted to take the Caucasus oil fields, what happened was Hitler kind of like made too many errors logistically, strategically. Like he sent Army Group like a whole Panzer division to assist the Army Group in the Caucasus, but it's just like they were overextended and Stavka and Shukov and Rokossovsky and Konstantino, what's his name? Konstantin? No, not Konstantin, but Khrushchev and all these other people, like they helped bring this fruition. Even Stalin helped bring this to fruition. So even though Stalin was definitely not up and up, but the British weren't up and up. The Americans weren't on the up and up. Nobody was on the up and up. Nobody was. I mean, does one side have more dirty laundry than the other? Debatable. It's just politics, really. Yeah, Stalin, he killed millions of people. Of course, he was mass murder, genocide, blah, blah, blah. But it was really orchestrated. The Ukrainian famine was orchestrated, and that's why millions of people starved. But it's terrible, of course. But the Americans are not exempt. They have dirty laundry too. The British have dirty laundry. The Germans have a whole room full of dirty laundry. So, but I made this video really to just kind of like shed light on the fact that the Russians really had a big instrumental, like they were like super instrumental in defeating the Germans in World War II, the Nazis in World War II. So we got to give them more credit, guys. Like we got to give them more credit because every time I look on YouTube and stuff, like people always talk about how the Americans were really the ones that helped save us from the tyranny and blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely tyranny. What Himmler did and the SS and all those crazy little lunatics did in Europe when they had them under occupation. That shit, I don't even think I could say it on YouTube. That stuff is like really, it's yeah, it's disgusting. You guys should go watch Come and See. That's a movie about how the Belarusians and the partisans that were behind enemy lines when the Russians were like retreating during Operation Barbarossa. I think it was 1941, 1942, or maybe 1943, and they retreated. And it was only until Operation Bagration was happening that that Belarus and Minsk was liberated from the Nazis. But before that, they were under the yoke of the Nazis during World War II. So I think we need to give them more credit, guys. We do. We have to, because for them to encircle the Germans at Stalingrad is just a feat that I think is amazing, because their intelligence was amazing too, because it was apparently there was a spying in Switzerland. Lucy or something. Lucy was the one that told the Soviets about the size of the German forces, the size of the Axis allies, which were on the flanks, supporting the flanks. So what happened was the Sixth Army was to take Stalingrad, and then the Romanians and the Italians and the Hungarians would cover the flanks north of Stalingrad. They would cover the plains, but the Soviets, they mustered a force. So basically, the first few weeks of the attack, Chuikov and what was his army group? Chuikov's army group. I guess it doesn't really matter too much, but Chuikov's army group was the one that was holding the Nazis back in Stalingrad. The whole point was to try and stall and buy time and prevent the Germans from taking Stalingrad, and make them concentrate all of their forces in Stalingrad. And then the Soviets were mustering their forces, building up their tank divisions, building up ammunition depots, clearing minefields, and then they attacked. They encircled the Germans from two different points of effort. The plan was to really reach Rostov on Don, so that you could cut off the entire army group in the Caucasus. But they failed because they underestimated the strength of the Germans in Stalingrad, which was encircled. They thought they only encircled 90,000 men, but they actually encircled 270,000, which is insane, right? Just think about that number. 270,000 men encircled, just like that. And after that battle, the Germans never had the initiative on the Eastern Front ever again, because they lost too many men. Their allies were definitely fucked up. They just had large gaps in their front. They had to pull back their entire army group in the Caucasus to cover the flanks, so that they had to shorten their line because they went too far in. Enemy territory overran their logistical supply. And if you call a supply an army group, they're just gonna die out. Like, they're just gonna die. Because the supply, you need ammunition to fucking fight, you need food, you need water, you need fuel, you need all this stuff. So really, this was really just a video to try and shed light on the fact that the Russians did more than you think to win World War II. But anyways, guys, make sure try to get this video some traction. Let's try and get these likes up. And make sure to subscribe.